1, 2, 3.
Yes, it's the Late Breakfast Show with your host, Bernie J. Mitchell.
Are you in?
Are you in?
So I've just hit record, Andy, and it's another swashbuckling episode of the Late Breakfast Show. And this is probably one of the most long overdue podcasts ever. So, Andy, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for?
What am I known for? Well, that's a nice starting point. I wish you'd set me up with that before you hit record.
But it wouldn't have the same impact, would it?
It depends. It depends who you ask. Some people know me for being a marketeer and running agencies and working in agencies. Some people know me for the London Bloggers Meetup and all that is blogging in London. And some people know me for TechMap, and others just know me as a family guy.
Oh, what? Family guy. Have you got a little baby that answers back to you then?
Not that family guy. I'm not Peter, thankfully.
What about a master scuba diver?
I'm not one of that. I'd love to be one of those. I really would love to be one of those, actually. I was thinking about that at the start of this year. What can I do this year that would get me really excited? Doing that is one of those things, but I haven't got around to it yet.
So
I haven't convinced my wife it's a good idea yet, I think, is the answer.
To invest all that money in stuff that lives in the cupboard under the stairs. What's So before we come on, we talk about TechMap and London Bloggers Meetup, and that's where I met you through Julius Solaris. When he years and years ago, he turned up when I tried to talk you into doing the mother of all meetups that luckily never happened.
Yes, I remember the day walking into that meeting room. I think it was in a pub actually in St. Pancras. Here's this very sharply dressed, suited and booted guy called Bernie Mitchell. I thought, wow, who's this guy? He knows where he's going. And now you're sat podcasting in your t-shirt. it's quite entertaining.
And my pajamas. Okay.
Yeah.
But what's so where's how did let's go through a little history of London Bloggers Meetup, because that was where I've learned loads of stuff about blogging. And the biggest disappointment actually was when I put my hand up and said one day and said, who blogs on their mobile device, and like 2 people did. I thought I was,
Yeah, no, the Bloggers Meetup was brilliant. Well, it was brilliant for a little while. I think we ran it for about 6 or so years, maybe more than that, 8 years, I think, actually. We put together about 60 events. But, I mean, I've told this many times. I actually went along to the first Bloggers Meetup as an attendee. I think there were 7 members. Nobody else showed up, and I was a bit demoralized. Then the very next day, I got an email from meetup.com saying, your organizer has stepped down. Do you want to take this on? I thought, well, there's 7 members. What can I do wrong here? So I took it on. And then, a couple of years later, we had a couple of thousand bloggers getting together monthly for a few beers and to chat about blogging and to learn about how to be a better blogger. And it was brilliant for a while. Really, really good, actually. We had loads of campaigns where we brought big brands together with bloggers. I think my favorite one was where we went to the Smirnoff's, the Diageo's private bar, and they ran a competition to promote the Moscow Mule. So they got a bunch of foodie bloggers together to learn about how to make the Moscow Mule cocktail. And then we got involved in their cocktail championships in their bar, and it was great. Everyone had a personalized Moscow Mule based around their blog, which I thought was superb work by the agency who set that up, a company called Splendid. I thought it was really, really good. But we did loads of great stuff for the Bloggers Meetup. You organised with me that boat trip along the Thames, didn't you?
That was cool.
Which was awesome around London 2012. So yeah, no, the Bloggers Meetup was a huge success for a number of years there.
I like the eBay one as well. That was really good. There was
the eBay one, yeah,
and the Vodafone one. There was a little phase there in the middle there where like every episode was a big company with a blank checkbook to put behind the bar. Tons of cool things to give away.
Yeah, it's not often we hear me saying positive things about Vodafone, but actually they were the most generous of the sponsors because we were in a bar in Covent Garden, and I think we burnt through about $2,000 on the bar tab. And the client just said, yeah, don't worry, keep going. And we carried on drinking. So very generous way to treat bloggers at the time.
They were good guys. Actually, Vodafone, apart from the fact they even though they are tax dodging fuckers, they're customer service is really, really good. Because after that meetup, I swapped over to Vodafone because my 3 contract was at the end, and I've really enjoyed it ever since. Every time I've had a problem, but they are still tax dodging fuckers. But anyway, moving on. What was So what? Because we both ran bloggers meetup for a while, and I think, and do correct me if I'm painting a inaccurate picture here, because we started doing the podcast, and I thought the podcast was going to be the beginning of a whole new chapter, but it seemed that we just got loads of cool bloggers on from around the world, which made us look great. And we asked everyone, what's your blogging advice? And it just seemed to be a podcast of like, what's your blogging advice? Just do it. What's your blogging advice? Just do it. And is that, do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, 100%. I think the challenge with blogging is it no longer was sexy. And people that tried it and didn't manage to just do it, they just kind of moved on to easier forms of communication, Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or wherever they wanted to express themselves. And so blogging has become a little bit more niche for those that are writing creatively. And for the rest of us, it's just a marketing exercise, and the interest and the opinion has kind of died out of blogging a little bit. And you're absolutely right. All those experts their main piece of advice was just do it. So, I mean, you can only build so many shows on that piece of advice, I think.
Yeah, I had to can the other like 50. I wonder how much of it was the questions I have for people nowadays are way better. And I'm not saying that to show off. I'm saying that to that was like 3 years ago now, wasn't it? So if I hadn't improved my style in the last 3 years, I'd be, doing something really wrong. But
yeah, there's certainly an amount of that where it was just you and I getting very early experience in trying to ask interesting questions and run good interviews. So yeah, I imagine we're a lot better. At least I hope I'm a lot better at podcasting now than I was then.
And it's all regressed into in this one here. What
all of those skills.
What do you do about writing now? Because I always had you down for. I always thought you did very. And I can candidly say this. I was always very jealous of your ability to go to an event and produce a kind of wrap up, round up event report the next day. And I don't know where you had time to write it, but it was always very clear and informative about what happened. So what do you write about today?
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Bernie. I didn't realize I had generated that kind of interest. But
emotion.
Yeah, emotion. Good word. We're bringing emotion into the conversation. To be honest, I hardly ever write a blog post these days. I'm much happier getting on a podcast, and that leads me into TechMap, which we talked about at the start of just before we started to record as well.
You're not going to shamelessly plug your event in April in London on the 28th about the.
What, my event TechMap in London on April 28th, all about programmatic, cross-channel programmatic marketing? No, I wouldn't dare to say that, Bernie.
Haven't you always? A serious question now. Haven't you already done that? Sorry. Let me ask that much more politely. Didn't you do that last year? And is it a progression of that topic? And what the hell is it?
So we talked about programmatic advertising last year, and we had a session where we had two guys from Nestle, so client side. We had a guy from a company called Tube Mogul, and we had a guy from Time Inc., the publishers, talking about. Well, he's a sales side, talking about selling ad space, and that was all about online only programmatic advertising. But this one is cross-channel, so we're looking at not just online, but also out-of-home programmatic and also radio programmatic. And we're looking to move that conversation forward to say, okay, it's not all about just buying online. It's about how do you actually bring those different platforms into your advertising mix, your media strategy. So we're definitely moving it on. And we've got some really nice case studies. The company that's hosting is a company called Talon Outdoor, and they're an outdoor media strategy and buying agency. And they did some work with Google around the Rugby World Cup that they're going to be talking about. And it's how they used what was going on around the actual signage, the outdoor, to customize that particular creative. So, for example, they had in Waterloo Station, when there was New Zealand were playing, for example, they would have posters targeted towards a Kiwi audience or the New Zealand message. And it's things like that actually enhance the impact of an outdoor campaign rather than a standalone just poster, really. And that would be quite interesting. And then we want to talk to the guys. I'm hoping that the guys from Global Radio are going to come along and talk about how they integrate what they're doing through digital radio programmatically, so you can carry on that conversation between online, outdoor, and on radio as well, which I think will be really, really, really an interesting case study. So if you're into programmatic, if you're into data and you're into targeting and all that good stuff, it should be
for those that and even people like me that attended an event and still can't explain it, but I get it.
What's programmatic?
Yeah.
Okay, so the easiest way to understand it, because it can mean different things. So at its most basic level, when you buy media space, you either do it through a good old-fashioned insertion order or sales order, which is paper. You can now do that online. So when you're talking to a publisher, you just complete all that sales transaction online. That's the very simplest programmatic. But also, and the more complex end of the spectrum, it's where advertising is targeted based on your behaviors and your traits in real time. So let's say you you do a search for, what do you buy? Doc Martens shoes.
Yeah.
Let's say you search for Doc Martens, you don't buy it, but you looked in the store, but you don't buy it. The next web page you go to, you'll see an advert probably for Doc Martens shoes. And let's say you then move on to another website, for sake of argument, shareable.net. They probably have advertising on their site. You might then again see another advert for Doc Martens shoes. And that is programmatically following you around the web. So that's retargeting. And that's programmatic. It's targeting you in real time. Based on
Echo. Is it like Facebook advertising for the web?
Absolutely, yeah. Facebook advertising is a good example, in that you buy an audience rather than buying a piece of media. So you tell Facebook, I want to target people who are 35 to 40, wear specs like Doc Martens and love to podcast and don't have to spend too much money on haircuts. And it will then find that audience and target just you with that advert. So in theory, you should get a much better return, whether it's a brand campaign or a performance marketing campaign.
So could it equally target people that tell shit jokes in blue shirts?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure actually they have that level of granularity in Facebook, but maybe.
So if I was a company, I would be absolutely frigging loving that. And as a not even a consumer, but a member of the public, I find that really creepy. So is there an argument or moral argument or something like that there?
Well, there's a big debate in the industry. The two things that are still top of mind at the moment are ad blocking and also ad fraud. Brilliant. So ad fraud is where publisher networks are serving ads to robots and then charging their clients for the cost of that impression. Mm-hmm. And ad blocking is where people like you go, you know what, I'm really disappointed. I'm really annoyed with this advert. It's following me around the web. I don't want to buy Doc Martens shoes or whatever that brand is. So you install an ad blocker on your browser and that stops all those adverts from showing up. And there's definitely a school of thought that says people are only installing ad blocking because the advertising is intrusive and poorly targeted. If it's of value and it's good and entertaining and valuable advertising, you wouldn't get so upset. But I mean, that's a whole can of worms, a huge debate around how do we overcome the issue of ad blocking that is just really getting started.
So I've got an ad blocker, and it's mainly I've got an ad blocker because I just get so easily distracted. And most stuff I wouldn't buy anyway, so I don't think I'm, depriving people of stuff. But then every so often an advert sneaks on my thing, but it's always for something I've brought. So I get adverts for Free Agent and Rescue Time and, things I already use, I'm a customer of, I get adverts for. And another thing that might have come up is I'd rather pay to use Facebook and not have adverts. That's the only place it really shows up now. Because I love clean online experience.
I would bet you're one of the very few people in the world that would rather pay to use Facebook than to see adverts. And I think that people have to realize there's a value exchange here. If you want to have all this good free stuff on the net, whether it's the use of a platform like Facebook or whether it's the ability to read some great articles on the Guardian or Mail Online. So did I just say great articles on the Mail Online in the same sentence?
No,
good. Okay, so
glad you picked that up. Glad you picked up on that because
almost killed my reputation there if I have one. There's a value exchange, and you need to understand that if you're going to install an ad blocker and you remove that revenue stream for that publisher or that platform, they'll no longer be able to provide that service, and you're going to miss out. So you've got to remember that these businesses make money by showing you those adverts. So be a little bit tolerant. I would say that because I'm kind of in the marketing space, but be a little bit tolerant. Otherwise, what you might see is you're going to lose some of the things that you hold dearly, which might be Facebook, or it might be an online publishers that you love to check into. And it's, understand that there is got to be a value exchange there.
But that's the point, is using like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'd rather not have adverts, but for exactly the reason you just said, I'm totally fine with it. And with Google, was okay, like £4.77 to use Google a month. It's some ridiculously low thing for what would have been £100 a month a few years ago in software. So all that stuff. Do you remember Joe Kelly wrote a post about Google is free? It's about 5 years ago, so I'd be amazed. But it was
I can't remember it. Yeah, sorry.
It was like, well, it was something as scathing, deliciously scathing as, why do you think it's free? Or why do you think it's free or so cheap? They're not like that. It's cheaper for them to get all the data from what you've used than it is for them to go out and do Survey Monkey on it. So and that's fair. That's fair enough for me. I don't mind that. Actually, what do you think about all that type of data thing? Because yeah.
Give me 1 second. My cat is scratching at my door. So before he buries through it, hang on. I think it's inevitable that as marketeers and brands have access to data, more and more data, they're going to use it in more and more effective and powerful ways to show you advertising that you will respond to. And there's absolutely no way you as a consumer can really avoid that, because everything you do online leaves a trail of information. Everything you download, everywhere you enter your email address, you leave behind a load of information. And marketeers are getting better and better at collecting that and using it. So I think it's pretty inevitable and pretty pointless to get upset about that. Better just to make sure that you are in control of what you're doing with your data and your security settings and all that good stuff, so that you're only sharing, or you're controlling what you share.
But think how much we know about this, because we've been hanging around the tech map, social media part of your DNA, bloggers world for ages, right? Think how I wouldn't claim to remember them all, but think how many books and stuff we've read in this area, and I still don't know very much. So what about people that this doesn't, that some of the people must blindly use the web and be screwed over?
Yeah, inevitably, there are people that won't really understand what they're doing and the sort of power of the web. And you're right. You and I have spent quite a lot of time immersed in this space, so we've got used to the idea, perhaps, that people are watching. Mm-hmm. Google is the all-seeing eye. It collects so much data on us and what we're doing and our behaviours and our activities online. I think there's little way to avoid that if you want to use the internet in this day and age.
So how did you said there was a debate going on in connection with the, I was going to say problematic
problematic advertising. That's interesting. Yeah. I often call it programmagic by mistake, but it's programmatic.
You sound like our mate John from Nimble. Programmatically is sorry John, because I know you're probably listening. So let's, after I fluff that, let's segue back into the 28th and TechMap. And how did you get into TechMap, and what are you doing with it?
Well, TechMap is a community that was built initially by Shannon Eastman. I think that's Shannon's name. She's changed a few times. Barry Furby and your good self. I think you.
No matter what they tell you, boys and girls, it was my idea. Okay.
I'm not going to go into that debate. That's history, and I think that you guys, for whatever reason, it dropped off your radar as to being an important part of your world. So I picked it up about a year ago and thought, well, let's see if we can reinvigorate this community and really create a platform for those that care about using technology for marketing or advertising to get together, learn from each other, create an experience where they can actually gain some insight at a decent level and do that through events. And we've launched a podcast in association with that, which is very much an interview show, me talking to experts that are using technology for marketing and advertising and getting some insights that our community can use. And that's what we're trying to achieve, is just create some value there, really. Initially, it was part of a marketing exercise for my agency, Klaxon, to try and get some new clients. But actually, it's more than that. It's a conversation, really. It's a conversation I'm trying to start with people that care about advertising and marketing technology.
And who are the best people to? Who does it add the most value to? Like, is it for?
Well, I tell you what,
gurus.
A good way of looking at that is to say, well, what kind of feedback have we had so far? A couple of examples, I've had a few people that own or run agencies say, I've never come away from this TechMap meetup without having had a really good conversation with a prospect and then moving that conversation forward. And that's interesting, because if you're an agency owner talking to clients or other stakeholders and you're getting conversations that leads to business, that tells me it's a reasonably senior, interested, engaged audience. The meetups aren't big. They're generally around about 20 to 30 people. So they're quite intimate, and it's a good way to meet a small number of people and get to know them, as opposed to a room full of people and you perhaps speak to one or two folks and don't get that quality conversation. So if you run an agency, you're a senior in a media agency or a creative agency, or you have an ad tech, martech product and you're a director, or someone senior, or even just getting going and you're a consultant, or you work in a brand, we get less brand client-side marketeers, which I think is interesting. We've had a few, but we tend to get more agency and ad tech people at the meetups.
It's the keeping up with the space is really hard work. It's
bonkers. Yeah, it's moving at the speed of light right now. There are new products and new tech out all the time, and if you look at there's this really great diagram. I say really great, really confusing actually. It's called the Lumascape, and it's been created by Luma Partners that basically lays out all the different areas within the ad tech landscape to show how they all fit together. And there are so many companies in this space, all competing to work in the ad tech environment, and it's really, really convoluted. And those companies are often bought up by the likes of Google, or they merge, or they fall over, and then new companies come in their place. And staying in touch with that landscape is difficult. It's really tough.
And I want to go back a couple of paragraphs, because you said about the it's an intimate meetup, and I used to love it was great having 150 people turn up for London Bloggers Meetup. And in the early days of TechMap, there was a huge audience, but I maybe I'm just old and boring and introverted now, but like going to something with 30 people where I can sort of at least say hello to everybody and have a decent conversation with people is much more attractive now.
Yeah, you know what? It's very much like that. There's some food flying around, some nibbles, and you just have a chance to talk to people and get to know them over a bite to eat sometimes and some beer. And it's so much more conducive to a conversation than a room full of 80 to 100 bloggers or 80 to 100 anybody who are all trying to compete for a share of voice. This is more about value exchange. People come to learn and to share, and the way we have the presentations is it's typically 3 speakers. They get 10 minutes each to explain why they're there on the panel, why they're an expert, and then it's Q&A. So everyone gets a chance to raise their hand and get their question answered. And when the group's that small, literally everyone has a chance to ask that question. And I think that's really good, really powerful, actually.
I love the geeky and useful questions. The last one I went to was with Richard from Bullhorn. That's it.
Yeah.
Baby bird.
Formerly of Pipeliner and formerly of Nimble.
Yeah.
There's Our CRM guru, Richard. Yeah.
He's the garden more about CRM than we'll ever know put together. And two things: the bullhorn. Baby Bernie still plays with the bullhorn, and there's still one which we chuck around work hubs. It's I'm amazed at how a bullhorn takeaway has lasted so long. But yeah, there were a lot of questions that I think people are scared to ask there about. What do I? I'm not even scared to ask, but I don't know how to ask. Is like, do I outsource my CRM or my HubSpot or stuff like that, or do I insource it? What's the best way to recommend it? And people just have a little like We Love Richard session. He's got so much experience around all those little things that people don't really think about until they become a problem in your business, around contacts and measuring and plugging this into that. And
that's right. And Richard really is an expert when it comes to CRM for any kind of organization. I don't think I know anybody who knows more about CRM than Richard. But we have, generally our speakers are like that. So we had a session, the last one was on neuroscience. How do we use neuroscience for marketing communications? And we had a guy called Tom Noble, and Tom runs a consultancy called Neuro Insight. And for me, he's such a knowledgeable expert in the space of neuromarketing. So if you're about to embark on any neuro project, the first port of call should be Tom, because he's got an independent look at what are the best neuroscience techniques you can use for your specific challenge. And the idea is that each meetup we have 2 or 3 people that are just like that. They really, really know and own their space, and that gives you real value. There's a real point in you attending the event, because you're not there to listen to a bunch of sales pitches. You're there to learn. And in the past, I think we've only had 1 speaker do a sales pitch so far, and that was a bit of a shame. But apart from that, they've been really good presentations. You can see most of them if you go onto our website. You can see the videos. We've recorded all those presentations. Check them out. Do you want a link? Do you want a link for the show notes?
I will. I was going to say and my mind's gone blank, which is always a bit awkward on a podcast. And I'm going to cut to the dead donkey here. It was interesting how TechMap started, because I got to know Barry Furby because he used to run this friggin' amazing. Like he was one of the like London bloggers meet up in its heyday. Press open. We've just announced this meetup, and it would fill up in like 25 seconds, and it was called Social Media Monday, and it was in the Bullfrog, whatever it is, pub. Theodore
Bullfrog. Yeah.
And the place would just pack up, and it was a really there was a few like social media, can I just punch you in the face and throw you out a window people there, but there were loads of people who were in agencies as well, or starting their own agencies, or people like us, who were just like finding their way. It was like the wild west of social media. And then I was running this thing called the 140 conference meetup, which came out of an event in that happened in London. And we kind of just this is when both of us started working with TCS Digital World in Belgium. So then we put both meetups together, and TCS Digital World ended up sponsoring all 3. And as much as I joke about taking credit for it, I kind of could show it with a group of people. But Barry and Shannon put loads of effort into that TechMap brand and the technology, marketing, advertising, and PR. And they said, "This is what we're going to call it." And I was like evilly jealous of it, because I thought, that's so cool. I wish I thought of that. But then we ran them in Belgium and Paris and London for probably only for a few months, but it was so cool. It was such a good experience driving. We didn't drive, obviously. Going between each location and hearing. Like, one of the things was at that time, it was really easy to get an iPhone in the UK, and because of the way the data was, it was like 40 quid a month for a brand new iPhone, and it did all this. We're in Belgium, to have an iPhone and the data package to make it worth it was like 120 euros. So hardly anybody was using.
Is that right?
Yeah, like we were all like, wait, let's tweet at events and do all this stuff. But in those days, it was a luxury item, and just the way. Can't think of any other useful examples. But it was really interesting how in even 3 countries in Europe that are first world countries, and we assume that are quite similar, different things affected how people would use the web, use the internet, use social media, whether they like Facebook for business. Zing is bigger in Europe than LinkedIn was at that time. So I was like, let's connect on LinkedIn, and people would go, you what is that? I'd never heard of it. Zing me.
I'm not sure what accent that was, Bernie.
That sounded like I've got to be careful because sometimes my wife listens to this, and when I do, she's very hot on being politically correct and not racist. So, and quite rightly too.
Well, let's on that note, then let's move on quickly because I had talked to some of the people in Amsterdam to see if they wanted to do Tech Map there again.
Yes,
conversation around doing it in Dublin. So I think there's an interest to do it in Dublin. In Amsterdam, it feels like that event scene's moved on. It's a very crowded space now, so I think it might be difficult to do something that's of interest and is different to what's already out there in Amsterdam. But if there are people who would love to do a tech map in their local city and think that they could create something of interest, love to hear from them. We could certainly look at re-exploring that network.
Going global. It was a wish it had lasted longer. And thank you for picking it up again. And if I'm available for tech map consultancy if you need to, build your brand.
Are your rates very reasonable?
They are. They're an avocado and a lemon, and a mention on Twitter, and I'll do anything.
That's useful to know. Thanks.
So, what's the last thing on? There's something else on our list. Tech map, bloggers meetup. What are you going to do with bloggers meetup, Andy?
Bloggers meetup. Okay, so. For those that know me and the Bloggers Meetup, know I've been organising it for ages, maybe about 6, 7, 8 years, we said earlier. But I've ran out of steam a little bit. I don't blog so much myself anymore, so it seems a bit odd for me to be running that. So if there are people, or if there's anybody within the Bloggers Meetup community that thinks, you know what, I'd like to pick this up, I'd like to run with it, get in touch, because I think it would be a shame to let that community die. And I think we're at the stage where I haven't done an event for a year. We put on 2 events at the start of last year, and we were very heavily criticised by our audience because one of our speakers turned up and he was a bit of a plonker and he was a bit rude and misogynistic in his presentation, and they gave us hell for it. And so we put on another event on the same topic with a different lineup of speakers, sponsored by Amazon, and loads of free drinks and all that good stuff. And I felt like I've made amends for that mistake. But now I don't want to do that anymore. I've kind of run out of love for that area of the world. So I'd like someone to come and own that and take it on. So get in touch if you think that's you. I'd love to hear from you.
Do I get a cut if Amazon buy it or anything like that?
If Amazon buy it, I'd be amazed. So yes, you can have a cut. Yeah.
Can I get 3 avocados and a lemon?
Yeah, there you go, 3 avocados. But I think really it was, for a while there, it was a good community. It was a good thing to do. People were having fun and learning, and that for me is a big enough reward. But it's time for someone else to take it on before it dies. It's funny, we get every week a couple of new members joining the Bloggers Meetup, but I haven't done an event for a year. So yeah, if someone wants to pick it up, if someone's got a passion, then get in touch.
I know you are trying to get rid of it, Andy. So I hate to slow that process down, but we did for a long time. I ran with other people helping me. I think we did it together for a bit. The London Meetup Organisers Group.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
It's definitely worth saying that. Like when you look at a meetup and there's like 2,000 people in it, at no time will you ever get them all turning up at the same time. And the demands of running a meetup are very worthy, but it is. Certainly not access to a huge sales channel or no.
If you're someone that basically wants to try and make a load of money, then it's probably not going to work for you. But having said that, we did make some money with the Bloggers Meetup through various channels. Corporate sponsorship was good, but it needs someone that loves blogging and wants to inject some life into it to come and grasp it with both hands. And I think they'll have some fun doing it because there are some really, really interesting people in that community. I always say it's nice. It's such diversity. One stage you might be talking to someone who's writing as though they're a pigeon, and then you'll talk to someone who's writing about where to have a great breakfast, and then you talk to somebody who's writing about music or photography. And you think, wow, what a creative space this really is. People are really showing their personalities off and enjoying it. So I think if you're that kind of person,
that was a thing that I really more. I had a lot of technical help there. But the thing I really appreciated about that, and I really appreciated about London Bloggers Meetup, London Meetup organisers. Do you remember when Scott from Meetup was in town, which is again about 100 years ago? And,
yeah, I do.
And because you were at that time, Andy, you were one of the biggest meetups in London. And it was like Andy Bargery from London Bloggers Meetup, which was the meetup equivalent of Jeff Bezos from Amazon.
That's right. You got me up on the stage. I had a little interview with.
And do you remember he went round the room and said, I love telling this story. So sorry if you've probably heard it a million times. So Scott went around the room and said, "Can everyone just say where their meetup is and what they do?" And people were like the people that went to something like BNI or some networking group knew how to do this, so they all stood up and said, "I'm Jefferson Airplane and I won the Guildford Bloggers Property Meetup Guru. Blah, blah, blah. I'm available on, and you can, I help people." And then Scott went, "Just say what you do, cut all that shit out, please." And there was like 150 people, maybe more than that, and they went round, and I got really emotional because it was like, we're the North London one-legged Jewish philosophy society. We're the the Whitechapel Basingstoke rugby team society, and we're the London bloggers. We're the flamenco dancers. We're the union. There was London Shy Meetup. There was different things about marketing and networking. There was a cooking thing, and then one that I was really impressed with in Whitechapel Hospital. There was a group of nurses that ran a soup kitchen on Meetup for people that were, not in enough shit socially to warrant having, support from the local authority and stuff like that. And they were too, they were sort of in that gap where they couldn't get any help from either side. So these are the people. So they ran the soup kitchen for that people, but they organised the whole thing on Meetup, and that was when I first started to realise it's really interesting how all these different platforms are available. You and I use Twitter in a certain way. I'm not sure anyone still uses Twitter actually, but we use Twitter in different ways. But they used Meetup for social good, whereas for people like us, it was London Bloggers Meetup and all that type of shit. So it was,
Yeah, that's nice because I didn't meet the guys doing the soup kitchen, but I did the London Shy Meetup, and I thought that was brilliant. To organise an event for people that are shy, that must be a really tough thing to achieve. But I think they were flying with that group.
I always wondered if he got people to fill in a Myers-Briggs before they came along, just to check they weren't trying to be, trying to bend the rules or jump the system. Between London Bloggers Meetup and London Meetup organisers, that was when I discovered the London that that's my London.
Yeah. I think that certainly the London Bloggers Meetup was a place to meet some really interesting people, and it was a really real melting pot, and I thought that was great about it. I really, really loved that about the Bloggers Meetup actually. I think that under new custodians it'll be an exciting place to be again, as long as what I found was there was more of a sort of move towards people who are making money online, being gurus, and I think as long as the focus remains on doing interesting creative stuff, then I think that can be a great little community.
And the final thought on that, we never quite managed to organise it, but I think it would having some kind of workshop thing go on there would work really well.
Yeah, we did that Get Your Blog Moving workshop, didn't we, for a little while? I think we ran one.
I forgot about that, yeah.
We did that session for Bosch and their global explorers. It was quite entertaining.
I really enjoyed that, yes. I can't believe I forgot that. So we are coming to the end of our time here, Andy, because my time's very expensive, and I know yours is twice as much.
For this conversation, are you? I don't want to find an invoice in my inbox.
I've forgotten how to invoice. It happens so infrequently. Being a proper freelancer, as every good marketer should have, at the end of a podcast, we need a call to action, Andy. So you can have centre stage for a call to action.
Centre stage. Well, I've got 2 calls to action. Is that okay? Can I look straight down the barrel of the camera? Is that there? I can't really tell. Okay, so if you are into advertising, whether it's programmatic or any other kind of advertising, come along to the next Tech Map on April the 28th of this year. It'll be held at Talon Outdoor, which is near to Tottenham Court Road Tube Station, and it's looking at cross-channel advertising and programmatic advertising. So I'd be really, really interested. And the second one is, in all seriousness, if you are a blogger in London and want to have a look at whether you can take over the London Bloggers Meetup, get in touch. You can reach me, Bernie, hope we'll put a link in the show notes, but at Andy Bargery on Twitter is probably the easiest way to get hold of me.
Brilliant.
There you go.
Thank you very much for your time. Now go and sort your cat and children out. And
I will. The cat's gone now. He stopped scratching, so we're okay. But Bernie, really nice to talk to you. It's been a long time, actually, since we've had a good...
Can you say long-time brother just for...
Long-time brother.
Oh, lovely. Rightio, we'll catch you soon. I think we should make this a regular thing, Andy, because
yeah, why not?
I enjoyed our banter.
You made me laugh on that. What was that calendar booking application you sent me yesterday? I forget what it's called now. Calendly. Book an appointment in my diary, and every single day, no appointments. Wow, who is this guy? He's like Lord Sugar or something. He's just so busy.
Yeah, actually, it's because we're going away on holiday, and I ballsed up the blanking out the dates. So I'm not available. So you're not the only person to say that.
Oh dear.
People left this podcast thinking I'm really big and important. Obviously, I'd have no objection. So thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you, Bernie.
And link in the show notes. Bye.
Bye now.
Please go to berniejmitchell.com/podcast. Bernie would love your feedback and input.